The arena floated in the center of the galaxy, watched by billions of beings from every known world. It was shaped like a giant circle, glowing with energy. Tall screens showed the faces of the two fighters. On one side stood Korgath the Bone, Crusher, a champion from the war planet Varnock. He was huge, covered in dark armor, with red eyes that burned like fire. He had never lost a fight. His name made enemies shake in fear. On the other side was a human girl. She looked small, thin, almost fragile. She wore simple clothes, no armor, no weapons. Her face showed no emotion. She looked like she didn't even want to be there. The crowd laughed when her name appeared on the screen. Arya, human. Some aliens booed. Others shouted for the fight to start, already expecting her to fall in seconds. Korgath stepped forward and raised his hand to silence the noise. He smiled, then pointed at her. "This is your champion?" He laughed. "This weak little girl? This is what humans send to fight? Do they think this is a joke?" Arya said nothing. "She looks like she could break in the wind," Korgath continued, walking in a slow circle around her. "She's not even holding a weapon. Look at her. She's shaking. She's scared." Still, Arya didn't move. Korgath came closer, now only a few steps away. "Maybe if you cry, they will stop the fight. Maybe if you beg, they'll spare you. Or maybe—" He didn't finish his sentence, because suddenly his knees bent. His legs shook. A strange sound echoed. Across the arena, crack, like something snapping under great pressure. The crowd went silent. Korgath dropped to the ground. His mouth opened, but no words came. His bones, strong bones that had survived 100 battles, began to twist and break. One arm bent the wrong way. His spine curved unnaturally. He screamed, but no one moved to help him. No one understood what was happening. Arya still stood in the same place. She hadn't moved, not one step, not one finger. Her eyes stared at him calmly, like watching a bug on the ground. The arena lights flickered. Medical drones flew down, scanning Korgath. Their reports made no sense. No weapons were used, no energy spikes. Nothing physical had touched him. Yet, every major bone in his body was either cracked or shattered. One reporter whispered into his mic, She didn't even touch him." Korgath tried to speak. His voice was weak, nothing like before. What are you?" Arya finally answered. "I'm human," she said softly, "but I'm not weak." The crowd stared, some in fear, some in confusion. The same girl they laughed at was now standing above the broken body of the strongest warrior in the galaxy, and she had done it without lifting a hand. Back on Earth, people watching from their homes were stunned. In the high councils of alien empires, alarms went off. Leaders demanded answers. Who was this girl? How did she do it? Was she using forbidden tech? Was it magic? But those who looked closer saw something else. In her eyes was no joy, no pride, no anger. Just silence. A deep, strange silence. The arena master declared her the winner, but she didn't react. She turned and walked away as Korgath was carried, off on a stretcher. As she exited the arena, a group of scientists tried to stop her. "Please," one begged. "We need to scan you, we need to understand." She looked at them for a second, then said, "No." She kept walking, and the galaxy changed that day because it saw something it didn't believe possible. A human girl, alone, silent, standing, still, and making the strongest warrior in the galaxy fall like a puppet with cut strings. No one knew where she came from. No one knew what she could really do. But everyone now had the same question in their minds. If she didn't even move, to do that, what happens when she decides to? And in the darkest parts of space, powerful beings began to whisper her name, not in mockery, but in fear. The whole galaxy was talking about the girl. News channels showed her silent face. The name Arya was now known on every planet. Some called her a miracle, some called her a monster. But no one knew who she really was. On Earth, people were shocked. Some cheered. Others were scared. A few thought it was fake. She's just a girl, they said. How can she do something like that? But the arena recordings were real. Korgath's broken body was real. The pain in his eyes was real. The governments of Earth started to investigate. They looked through every file, every school, every ID record. Finally, they found her. Aria Daniels, 19 years old, born in a small town in North America. No military record, no criminal record, no special background, just a quiet girl who lived a quiet life. But there were things that didn't make sense. Her school records showed she had missed many days. Her teachers said she was strange, polite but distant. She didn't talk much, she never joined groups. She would sit alone, reading books no one else understood. Books about the mind, about energy, about things beyond science. She had no friends. Bullies tried to bother her once. Only once. After that, they left her alone. But no one remembered why. Her neighbor, an old man, told a strange story. She used to stare at the stars, he said, every night, like she was waiting for someone or something. One night, when she was about 12, she disappeared for 3 days. Everyone searched for her. Police, dogs, even helicopters. Then, just as suddenly, she returned. She was found sitting in the forest near her home, calm, clean, not a scratch on her. She wouldn't say where she had been. After that, she changed. Her eyes became colder. She stopped speaking for almost a year. Doctors said she was fine. But no one knew what really happened during those 3 days. Now, that girl had just broken, a champion without moving a finger. Back in the galactic arena, engineers checked the systems. They found no faults, no secret tech, no mind control devices. The girl had not cheated. She simply stood there. And something happened. Something they couldn't explain. In deep space, powerful alien minds began to worry. Aria had done something only a few in history had ever done. She had used raw will to crush another being. Not with weapons, not with machines, but with something deeper, something old. A message was sent to the Council of Elders, a group of ancient beings who had watched the galaxy for thousands of years. One of them, a creature made of living light, reviewed the footage. After a long silence, it said only 4 words. She has the echo. No one dared ask what that meant. Back on Earth, Aria had returned. She stood in the middle of a forest, far from cities. She looked at the sky. She seemed tired. Not like someone who had won, but someone who was waiting again. Then a voice came from behind her. "You used it," the voice said. It belonged to a tall figure cloaked in shadows. His face was not human, his eyes glowed blue. "I had to," Aria replied. Her voice was low. "They will come now," the figure said. "They'll send hunters, killers, machines. They fear what you are." "I know," she said. "I don't care." The figure stepped closer. "You are not ready." Aria turned to face him. "I was ready the day they took me. The day I saw what they do to the weak. I'm not weak anymore." The figure nodded slowly. "Then the test begins." He vanished into the air. Aria stood alone again, but she didn't look afraid. Her hands were still. Her heart was calm. In the shadows of space, a signal was sent. A bounty was placed on her head. The message was clear. Find the human girl. Destroy her before she becomes something more. But already it was too late. She had already become something more. And those who mocked her before? They would not laugh again. Long before the arena fight, before the galaxy knew her name, Aria was just a quiet girl who wanted to disappear. After her strange return from the forest at age 12, something inside her had changed. She didn't understand it at first. She could feel things and people's thoughts, their fear, their pain. When someone shouted near her, she felt it echo in her head. When someone lied, her skin felt cold. She wasn't normal anymore. At night, she had strange dreams. In them, she stood on dark mountains, stars swirling above. A voice called to her, always the same. It was not human. It said words she didn't understand but somehow still knew. You were chosen. You were touched. The echo lives in you now. At first she tried to ignore it. She told herself it was just her mind playing tricks. But one day while walking home from school, 3 boys surrounded her. They were the same boys who had mocked her before, calling her freak, ghost girl, brain case. This time they pushed. Her one grabbed her arm. She didn't speak. She didn't move. The boy's nose began to bleed. His knees buckled. He screamed and dropped to the ground, shaking. The others ran. After that, she stayed inside more and more. She stopped going to school. Her parents didn't understand. They argued. They tried. Doctors. No one could help. Then, one night, the voice from her dreams became real. She woke up, not in her bed, but in a room made of stone and light. It was not Earth. The stars outside the windows were not the ones she knew. A tall figure stood before her, not a man, not a machine, something in between. He was calm. His eyes were silver. "Welcome," he said. "You have been brought here to learn." "Where am I?" she asked. "This is where the echo was born." He told her stories not from Earth but from the galaxy. Long ago, before ships and weapons, there were those who fought with the mind alone. They were called the Echo Bearers. They could bend metal with a glance, crush stone with a thought, silence wars without speaking. "But they are gone," he said, "all but one." "Me?" she asked. He nodded. And so her training began. For years she stayed in that place, in a secret world hidden from time. The gravity there was stronger than Earth. It pressed down on her like an invisible hand. Every step was hard, every breath was pain. But slowly she grew stronger. She learned to focus her mind like a blade, to feel the movement of energy around her, to reach into the space between heartbeats. She could stop a falling stone. She could calm a storm. But the most important lesson came one day when she asked, "Why me?" The teacher looked at her for a long moment. "Because you were forgotten," he said. "Because you were overlooked. The weak are always ignored until they rise. You carry silence inside you, and silence is more powerful than noise." At first, she didn't understand. But as time passed, she began to see. Power wasn't about shouting. It wasn't about fighting with fists. Real power was still. It waited. It watched. And then, when needed, it ended everything. One day the teacher told her the training was over. "But I don't feel ready," she said. "That's how you know you are," he replied. And then she woke up, back on Earth. Her bed was the same. The calendar said only one day had passed, but she remembered everything. Every stone, every word, every pain. She waited after that. For what, she wasn't sure. But part of her knew the galaxy would call, that the fight would come, not just for herself, but for what she represented. A weak girl from a forgotten planet, holding a power no empire could understand. Years passed. Then came the invitation to the galactic arena. A simple message. "Human, are you brave enough to stand in the circle?" She accepted without fear. Now, after her victory, her enemies were gathering. Across distant systems, bounty, hunters loaded their weapons. Mind killers studied her face. Robots trained to hunt psychic energy began their path toward Earth. But they didn't know what she had survived. They didn't know how long she had trained. They didn't know she was the last echo bearer and the first in 1,000 years. And she was done hiding. The galaxy was no longer laughing. After the arena, after Korgath fell without a fight, everything changed. Across the stars, the most powerful leaders held secret meetings. They didn't care that she was human. They didn't care that she was young. What they cared about was fear. Fear of what she could do. Fear of what she might become. On the dark world of Torvaxis, a general of the Iron Horde slammed his fist into the table. "She is a threat to galactic order," he shouted. "She must be destroyed before others follow her." His soldiers nodded. They were killers bred for war. They had crushed planets, but none of them wanted to face the girl. On the moon city of Zilan Prime, the Mind Syndicate held a vote. The result was clear. Eliminate the human girl. They didn't believe in fear. They believed in control. Arya was not part of their system. She could not be allowed to live. From these meetings came one order: hunt her, and so they sent the best. The first was a shadow creature called Varn, trained to enter dreams and kill with a thought. He flew to Earth in silence. He entered her mind while she slept. But something was wrong. Inside her dream, she was waiting for him. "You're not the first," she said. Varn tried to strike, but his power failed. His form began to break apart. Arya looked at him with calm eyes. "You don't belong here," she whispered. And then Varn vanished, and forever. The second was a warbot named X9, made from living metal and powered by black suns. It landed in the forest near her home. Birds flew away. Trees cracked under its weight. It found her standing on a hill, watching the sky. "You are the target," the bot said. "Surrender." "I don't want to hurt you," she said. "I do not fear hurt," it replied. And then it fired. Energy beams shot toward her. The ground exploded. Trees burned. The wind screamed. But when the smoke cleared, she was still standing. The blasts had curved around her like water avoiding a stone. EX9 took a step forward, and then it stopped. Its arms bent inward. Metal groaned. Its legs folded. The entire machine collapsed like a toy, crushed by invisible hands. She walked past it. "I told you," she said. "I didn't want to hurt you." Now the galaxy began to panic. The hunters failed. The machines failed. Even the Mind Syndicate could not enter her thoughts again. Whispers turned into fear. Was she a god? A weapon? A mistake? But Arya wasn't hunting anyone. She wasn't hiding either. She moved from place to place on Earth. Quiet towns, deep forests, cold mountains. People began to notice her. Not because she caused trouble, but because trouble avoided her. A gang tried to rob a gas station where she stood. The leader pulled out a gun. The gun broke in half. No one saw her move. A police drone tried to scan her. It crashed into the ground before it got close. Some people were afraid of her. Others followed her. They called her the Silent Storm, a force that could not be touched. But Arya didn't want followers. She didn't want fame. She only wanted one thing: to wait for the real threat. Because she knew something the galaxy didn't. The ones who sent the bounty were not the most dangerous. There were others, older, hidden, watching from behind the stars, the ones who first created the Echo, the ones who destroyed it long ago because they feared it, and now they knew she was alive. In a distant part of the galaxy, far from light, a creature opened its many eyes. "She is the Echo Bearer," it hissed. "We buried that power. We burned it from the stars, yet now it lives again." Another voice replied, ancient and cold. "Then we must finish what we started." The real war was coming, and Arya was the reason. But she didn't run. She stood in the quiet night, looking at the stars. Her hands were still. Her mind was calm. She wasn't afraid, because she had trained for this, because the galaxy had forgotten what true strength looked like, and because the next time they came, she wouldn't just defend herself. She would show them what happens when the silent fight back. The galaxy was changing. It started slowly. A few quiet messages, a few strange reports, ships refusing orders, colonies going silent. But behind all of it was one name: Arya. At first, the leaders thought she was a rare case, a human with strange power. But now they weren't so sure. Something was happening on Earth, something they didn't understand, because Arya had not gone back to hiding. Instead, she began to teach. She didn't open schools. She didn't give speeches. She just walked from town to town, city to city. And everywhere she went, people listened, not with their ears, but with something deeper. A boy who used to be bullied stood up to his tormentors, without anger, without fear. A girl with broken bones healed faster than doctors could explain, just by sitting quietly near Arya. An old soldier who hadn't walked in years stood from his chair and said, "She passed by me," and the pain left. It was not magic. It was not medicine. It was something else. They called it the echo, and it was spreading. In hidden places across Earth, people began to feel it. Not power, but possibility. They didn't know what Arya was, but they knew she had shown them something, that they were not weak, that they were not forgotten. This frightened the great empires more than any weapon. They had ruled the galaxy by keeping the weak afraid, by keeping the quiet voices silent. But now, Earth was waking up. A new kind of strength was rising. Not loud, not violent, just steady, unshakable. The Council of 12, the oldest rulers in the galaxy, held an emergency meeting. "This girl must be erased," said the High Warden of Vex, "before she makes more like her." "We've tried," growled the war leader of the Zyrex. "She cannot be touched, not by blade, not by thought, not even by machines." "Then, destroy the planet," someone whispered. The room went silent. That was not a suggestion. It was a threat. But they knew Earth would not go quietly. Not anymore. And Arya wasn't alone now. Meanwhile, far from Earth, something even stranger was happening. On the mining planet of Kirill 7, a human worker lifted a massive beam to save his friend, something no normal human could do. On a slave ship near the edge of space, a girl closed her eyes, and the collars around the prisoners snapped open by themselves. In the labs of a secret moon base, scientists who had been studying Arya's arena footage suddenly lost control of their systems. The data deleted itself. The screens all turned black, and a message appeared in soft white letters. "She is not the only one." Panic spread across the stars. The alien rulers asked, "What's happening to the humans?" But the real question was one they didn't dare say out loud. What if humans were never weak? What if they were just waiting? Back on Earth, Arya sat on a rooftop as night fell. The stars above were bright. She closed her eyes and listened. She could feel it now, across the planet, a slow rising, a hum beneath the surface. People were remembering who they were, and others, far away, were beginning to hear her echo too. She was no longer alone. Suddenly, a shape appeared, in the sky. A ship, black and sharp like a dagger. It landed near her without sound. A door opened. A being stepped out. Tall, skin like liquid metal, eyes like burning frost. It was not from any known empire. "You carry the forbidden," it said. "I carry truth," Arya replied. The last time the echo rose, it nearly tore the stars apart. Arya stood, calm. Maybe they needed tearing. The being paused. "You are dangerous." Arya looked straight into its cold eyes. "Only to those who fear the quiet." The being didn't answer. After a moment it turned and walked back into its ship. The door closed. The ship lifted into the sky and vanished. Arya stood still. She knew what was coming. The empires would send armies. The old powers would return. And the galaxy would try to crush the growing light before it became a fire. But it was too late, because the forgotten were rising. And this time, they had someone to follow. Not a leader, not a queen, just a girl who had once been called weak. Until the stars themselves learned to fear her silence. Across the galaxy, preparations for war had begun. Every empire, every system, every ruling force was afraid. They weren't afraid of Earth itself. Earth had no great armies, no powerful fleets. But they were afraid of what Earth had become, a symbol, a spark. And it all began with one girl who never raised a hand, but shook the galaxy to its core. Now, ships were moving, thousands of them. War fleets from the Zyrex swarm. Dreadnoughts from the Vex Dominion, mind-killer units from the Shadow Choir. The stars lit up with engines and weapons, all pointed at the small blue planet where Arya stood. They called it a containment strike. Not a war, just control. But everyone knew what it really meant. They were going to burn Earth. End the threat. Silence the echo forever. But Arya wasn't running. She walked through an old battlefield in the snow-covered mountains. Metal wreckage lay around her, rusted ships, broken machines. It was from the last time Earth had been invaded hundreds of years ago. Most had forgotten that history. She hadn't. She placed her hand on one of the old hulls and closed her eyes. The wind slowed. The air became still. Then, deep below the mountain, something stirred. Old systems woke up. Forgotten machines began to hum. Elsewhere, others were waking up too. In a desert village, a blind girl looked to the sky and said, "She is calling." On a space station orbiting Jupiter, a boy with no voice touched a screen, and it lit up with symbols no one had ever seen. Across Earth, and even in hidden parts of the galaxy, people were changing. They were hearing the echo. It wasn't power, like lasers or bombs. It wasn't something you could measure. It was something deeper. The strength to stand, to protect, to rise when everyone expects you to fall. Arya had never asked for followers, but now they were coming. Not soldiers, not warriors, just people who refused to be silent anymore. Back in space, the great fleets moved closer. The commanders were confident. "We have numbers," they said. "We have firepower. She's just a girl." But not all of them agreed. One Vex commander hesitated. He remembered watching the arena footage. He remembered the way Korgath screamed without being touched. He remembered Arya's eyes, not angry, not scared, just still. He gave a quiet order. "Power down weapons. Do not engage." His crew stared. "Sir, we came to fight a monster," he said. "But what if we are the monsters?" He wasn't the only one thinking that. Messages began spreading among soldiers, pilots, and even alien spies. "She doesn't kill. She protects. She's not destroying. She's warning." Still, most of the fleet followed orders. The countdown to the attack had started. Earth had hours left. Back on the mountain, Arya opened her eyes. "They're coming," she said. A figure stepped beside her. It was the same shadowed being from before and the one who had trained her. "Yes," he replied, "but they don't know what's waiting." Arya looked up. The sky above began to glow. Lights moved across the clouds, not from enemy ships but from Earth. Old satellites reactivated, hidden bunkers opened. Energy fields once thought lost began to shine. Earth was waking up, not with weapons, but with memory, with the knowledge of what had come before and what would not be allowed again. At that moment, the first enemy ships entered Earth's atmosphere. They expected fear. Instead, they saw people standing outside, calm, unafraid. Farmers, children, teachers, engineers, no weapons, just eyes filled with light. And in the center of it all, Arya. She didn't move. She didn't speak. But her presence was like a wall no army could pass. One ship tried. It fired a warning blast. The beam curved, twisted, and vanished into the sky like smoke. The ship's systems froze. The crew panicked. Then every screen on every enemy ship went dark. A simple message appeared. "We will not kneel." One by one, ships began to turn back. Not because they were beaten, but because they finally understood. This wasn't about power. This was about will. This was about truth. And Arya was the voice of everything they had tried to crush for centuries. The quiet, the small, the forgotten. They were no longer afraid. And the galaxy? It had just learned a lesson it would never forget. But Arya knew this wasn't the end. The true enemy still watched from beyond the stars, and they were coming next. The ones who had created the echo. the ones who once ruled everything. And now the final test would begin. The stars were quiet, but not with peace, with fear. Something ancient was moving beyond the edge of the galaxy, older than the empires, older than the wars, older even than memory. They were the first rulers, the ones who created the echo, the ones who destroyed it. And now they were coming back, not with ships or guns, but with silence. Where they passed, stars dimmed, signals died, planets went cold, time itself felt slower. Their name had been lost long ago. But now, they whispered it. Once more the forgotten order. They had seen Arya rise. They had seen Earth awaken. And they feared it. Because long ago they tried to erase the truth, that all living beings carry power, that even the smallest voice can shake worlds. The echo was not magic. It was not a weapon. It was a memory of what had been stolen. And Arya had brought it back. The order arrived without warning. One moment the sky was clear. The next, darkness. A shape blocked the stars. Not a ship, not a moon. A structure. Living, breathing, and endless. It hovered above Earth like a shadow. And then it spoke. Not with sound, but with thought. You have broken the silence. Arya stood in a field of tall grass. Wind moved around her. The world was still. I returned. What you tried to bury, she replied. You are not meant to exist, neither are cages, but people build them. All across the world, people looked up. They saw nothing but clouds, but they felt it. A pressure in their bones, a deep fear trying to grow inside them. But then they remembered. They remembered the arena. They remembered the girl who didn't fight and still won. They remembered standing together, and the fear faded. The order sent a wave of thought across the planet. It was like drowning in sorrow. People fell to their knees, crying, shaking. It showed them visions of failure, of pain, of everything they feared. But then someone stood, a child in a city, then another. An old man in a village, and then thousands more. Because the echo wasn't Arya. It was everyone. Arya walked to the center of the field. Her eyes closed. Her heartbeat slowed. Around her, the world grew brighter. And then, she lifted her hand. Not high, not with force, just enough. A wave of light moved across the earth, not light like fire, but light like memory. It passed through people, through mountains, through the ground. It reached into the sky, into the shadow that hung above. Them, the order screamed, not a sound, a feeling. They had not known fear for millions of years, but now they did, because Arya wasn't fighting alone. The quiet had found its voice, and the voice said, no more. The shadow cracked. Pieces fell from the sky, burning into nothing. The order tried to escape. They tried to twist time, to erase what had been done, but it was too late. The echo had returned, and this time it would never be silenced again. High above, the last piece of the shadow broke apart, and the stars shone once more. Tiar. War was over, not with guns, not with death, but with truth, with stillness, with unity. Arya sat down in the field. She looked at the sky, and for the first time in a long time she smiled. She had never wanted to be a hero. She had just refused to stay silent. In the days that followed, the galaxy changed. The great empires stepped back. Worlds, once forgotten, began to rise. People listened more, spoke less with force, and remembered that strength wasn't always loud. Sometimes strength was choosing not to harm. Sometimes strength was standing still when others ran. And sometimes strength looked like a small, quiet human girl who never raised her hand, but shook the stars anyway.